we got comments back from the Division of Water on the MS4 report, the one that we just sent in. Kind of, it wasn't required, but we wanted to get feedback. They were pretty happy with what we had so far, and they sent us some suggestions for going forward. So once I have a little bit of time to process that and lay out our next steps, I'll try to get everybody together for a Zoom meeting just to kind of plan out what we do with the rest of the year. I don't think there's really anything that we need for additional legislation right now, but we need to figure out what's going on with Boone County and the agreement for construction inspection, because that was kind of the big surprise that we had towards the end of this. Was we thought Boone County was doing our stormwater inspection. Boone County said SD1 handles that for us, and SD1 said, well, we do that, but only within our stormwater service area. So Walton was exempt from that, which means all of that hasn't been happening at all. So if it's something that, was in our agreement with the county that we haven't been receiving that service over the last several years, then, and we've paid money into it or whatever, we should probably get that sorted out or get the agreement revised or whatever, and then figure out who needs to handle those duties going forward.
Well, I've yet to discuss this with Jeff Earlywine or Judge Moore, but I would think as eager as and worried as they were about doing inspections, if SD1's who they contract for that, I would think that it would still be on the county. We have discussions almost daily here lately, but it's generally about COVID-19, and we haven't had an actual judge executive mayor's meeting. Roger, do you have any thoughts on that?
Ever since I've been here, 20 years I've been here, Boone County has always done our new installation or new stormwater inspections for streets, sidewalks, and stormwater. I don't know. I know they've had some people retire. There might be some confusion. Maybe after we talk to Jeff Earlywine, maybe we can get that straightened out. I think it was back when you first got in. I think we had a meeting with him, and who else was it? The new county engineer, and they wanted to continue doing the inspections. I remember that meeting we had.
It was the outgoing county engineer,
Scott from the state, Scott Pennington.
Pennington, yeah. I haven't actually sat down with the new engineer yet, so maybe that's something we need to look into talking about. I'll send Judge Moore and Jeff an email and see if they can help us along with that. Matt, where are we in relation to in regards to the High Street Bridge?
I actually haven't heard anything back from Dunrobin recently. I need to check in with them and see if they've gotten everything sorted out with the Rouse family. I think that was the roadblock they were working on. I haven't heard anything on their progress with the railroad. I know they knew who they needed to talk to, but I don't know if they've actually gotten to the point of making them an offer yet. So I'll check with them tomorrow.
Okay. Mike, I know you and I had some discussions about that. Would you care to share some of that information with council?
Yeah, the Rouse easement that Matt was just speaking of is the building that Asa and Mills Rouse practice their law firm out of. I have had exchanges with Mills. We've identified what the title problem is that Dunrobin pointed out, and Mills Rouse and his mother's estate attorney are working on getting that straightened out. It may be straightened out by now. When Matt talks to Dunrobin tomorrow, I guess they can confirm if that's clarified yet.
Okay. All right. Sharon, do we have anything from Chief Vest or Major Mark?
No, not yet, but they'd probably submit it sometime this week for the actual council meeting.
Okay. So I'll cross that out. Okay. Keep on. Street and sidewalk updates and reports. Has anybody got anything? There's a few things I'd like to touch on, but if any of you all have something that you've noticed or seen, now would be a good time to share it so we can make note of it.
We had the request from Brett Strong with the Osto Valley stop signs on LaSalle. And I'm trying to think of what that road is.
The 4-way stop and the other with the 3-way.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I assumed you and Bobby would be working on that. We can have Mike draft that up at any time. Roger and I had discussed it as far as I think where we've done it in the past, we're going to, if that's something you all go forward with, we're going to try installing. I've noticed a lot of other cities when they install something as far as a new stop sign, they kind of put a black garbage bag over it really tightly so it's a stop sign, and they leave it there for a couple weeks. Oh, it's kind of something I think we might want to try, at least for a couple weeks afterwards. But if that's something you would like to have, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't I forward that request to you? Do you,
I don't recall
do you
seeing
have
it.
that? I did not. Okay. Okay. Send Mike email. All right. So we can, if that's something you all want to go forward with, I think we can get that drafted up. Let's see. I'm going to cross through water rates. I think we need to bring David Baker in on that discussion. Splash pad update, parks. Matt, Bobby, you got anything with them? Matt Bogan?
I think we're ready to go, right? Ready to send it out to bid, Matt? I think so.
Are we settled at the park site? The place we talked about just downhill at Shelter? Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I'll get the bid specs together.
Matt, how does that, with the bid specs, what does that get us as far as design goes? Is that just a generalization that we've got, we are doing this project, it's going to be this many square feet, blah, 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 blah. Or does that go down to in detail, or is it kind of a design build type deal?
We could handle it. We could handle it either way, really. We could bid out a contract just for the site improvements, just to get it to the point of, getting the grading and the pad and all that put in, and then a separate contract for the actual, the fixtures and all that, the non-slip coating on the slab and all that, or do it as just one thing, one contract for the whole project. And, we would probably have, probably the splash pad vendor would be the bidder, and then sub out the site improvements.
Okay.
Vice
That's
versa, I guess.
the best way to do it.
Hmm?
I'd say it's best just to bid it all out in
One
pack.
thing. It's probably easier and less time consuming to do it that way. Yeah, you wouldn't have two separate bid processes.
Okay. Terry, Bobby, Matt, that's you all as far as that goes. So whatever you want to do there. Expense reports. Any questions on expense reports?
I don't have nothing.
See none. Moving on. Event planning. It was asked of me earlier today about Old Fashioned Day. Whether we were going to go forward with it. My guess is I don't want to be, my personal opinion, and I don't know how you all feel, is my personal opinion is that, it seems to be that we're gearing towards a reopening of things. So my thought was we continue to plan as if there's going to be an Old Fashioned Day. I don't know what your all's thoughts is on that. But I don't see, could we have another outbreak? Yeah. Very possible. But I think that's kind of something we're going to have to deal with when we get to that road. We'll have to cross it. So, I would think that we continue to plan as if we're going to have an Old Fashioned Day.
Yeah,
Any thoughts from anybody?
I agree. I mean, up until the point where we got to start slinging deposits out and stuff, I think we just play it by ear, and then once
Speaking of deposits, Bobby, they're already asking for a deposit for the stage. So I have that contract printed out on my desk right now. The stage people are good to go with it. I did tell them that there will be an employee there of the city at 4:30 and will remain with them until the stage is put up, just so we don't have an incident like we did last year. But they are asking for deposits already on things.
How much is the deposit for that? Roughly.
I want to say it was only like $250 or $350.
Okay.
A couple $100, several $100. And then we have some places that are putting us on their books, but not accepting deposits right now until it gets farther along in case something does happen.
Yeah, in my opinion, sinking some money into holding things ain't too big of a deal, as long as we're not sinking thousands of dollars into it and then end up canceling it. So, I don't know. I can't open my pool until at least July, and even that's a big if. So who knows? But August may be completely different, and then by September it could be. I don't know. I was all up to Andy.
There you go.
We should invite Andy. Andy should be the grand marshal for the Old Fashioned Day parade.
Yeah.
I think the ladies got that covered, don't they?
Well, we had discussion was also brought up for I don't know how we would do it, but having 2020 seniors as honorary grand marshals.
Yeah, if we do it, I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, I do too.
Let all of them walk, and we can give them a diploma at City Hall.
There you go. One thing, and I want to pick your all's brain on it. I don't know how many of you all have seen, they've started the, I don't know what it's called, Walton Memories or whatever, but they've shown a lot of the Old Fashioned Day photos. And I know that as much work as we put into last year's Old Fashioned Day, there were still people that complained it wasn't Old Fashioned Day. So I didn't know what you all thought about the theme of, back to basics, of maybe encouraging people to dress old timey again.
That's what
Yeah.
it should be. Old fashioned day should be old fashioned.
As long as you are dressed up as old fashioned, you got to
Yeah.
lead the way, Mayor.
Big top hat.
I've already,
The cowboy hat don't count.
hey, I've already bought Allie a hoop skirt. One of those old Southern Belle deals, the big.
Oh, I want one.
Well, that'll help all the girls be able to be 6 feet apart. So
There you
There
go.
you go.
Absolutely. No, I just wanted to run that back to you. I thought that would be a good theme, and maybe we try to bring that back. Seems like a lot of people, we could still have it jam, do like we did last year, weather permitting, of course. But I think it would be a cool thing to do. Frankly, it's been a long time since I've really seen anybody dress up. There you
that's
go.
what you gotta wear, Gabe.
I know Cassandra wants to wear one of those big dresses.
Negative.
All right, Roger's wearing the big dress.
Why not?
Well, it is the 21st century, right?
There you go. I guess you could break it back to the 20th century and wear something from the 90s that would still be old fashioned, right?
Or
Yeah.
Adam and Eve.
I can wear jeans and peg them at the bottom. Does that count?
Open for
Bruce is saying.
interpretation.
But no, it would be great if we could get more people to dress up.
Well, and honestly, I see it hard for that to happen because we have a lot of new people in the area. And a lot of people are like, what is Old Fashioned Day? I mean, and when we tell them what the day consists of, they're all like confused. Like, why is it called Old Fashioned Day? It's one of those things, if you're not from here, it kind of doesn't mean anything, to anybody.
Well, and that might be our choice to, kind of educate it. I didn't realize all the events that I had missed when I was a child that went on, old fashioned games and, various things. I remember the jail for the guys that didn't have beards, or you had to buy, I don't really want to do that. But I remember that when I was a kid, but there was a lot of things, that's probably we could discuss as we get closer. There's older people that remember a lot more than I do, but I think we could certainly promote it. And for the newer people there, if we're promoting it as, going back to that, and we're leading by example ourselves, then, might be something that we rekindle. So if I have to be the only one that's that's wearing something old fashioned, I'll do it. And yes, I realize the cowboy hat does not count. Probably nor do my bib overalls.
I'll do it. Scared to dress up.
Exactly. So COVID-19 response for employees and citizens. I'll touch on that a little bit. Seek your all's opinion. As of yesterday, started May 4th, we brought employees back on staff, with the exception of Dylan, due to his passing of his father. But We are now back to full staff. We are continuing to socially distance within the office and within the field. And that's about it as far as that goes. Any comments on that?
Can you share what we got going on with what we're sending for David, Dylan's dad, and that sort of deal?
We have, I believe we've ordered flowers and are sending a meat tray to the family. Is that correct, Roger, Sharon?
Yeah, I stopped today and got the ordered some flowers for him, and ordered some meat tray and some cookies, a cookie tray too, also for the family for their after get together, their after gathering.
Okay.
I have a card that we all signed. If anybody wants to stop by and sign that, I'll mail that this week. And then I think we're all gonna close the office and do like a drive-by processional. The employees and their work vehicles to show city support.
This is for anybody who doesn't know, the service is 10 to 1, correct? And that's
I
in Taylor
don't
Mill.
remember.
Independence.
Independence,
It's Independence,
Taylor Mill.
Independence, and it's 10 to 1 Thursday.
10 to 1, yeah.
Now we're going to take city truck,
Yes,
City of Walton.
yeah. I think Roger said all of his employees will each be in their own vehicles, going through there. And then we were gonna try to join in too, us girls.
How many vehicles do we have, Roger, that we could use that say City of Walton?
We'll all be in our pickup trucks, so it'll be 5 of us.
Do we have any that the girls could drive that have
Yeah.
City of Walton on there?
The Ranger.
Ranger?
Sandra can probably just ride with me if that's okay. I mean,
The Danger Ranger?
be at a distance. I mean, we're
Y'all
not
can
split apart
borrow
right
my
now,
park. They can borrow my parking enforcement maggots.
There
But
you
yeah,
go.
I mean,
No.
we do have. I mean, we have an extra vehicle they can, well, arrange, but it's not that great. I mean, we got the city vehicle.
Yeah, we can use the SUV, Tammy and I.
All right. Hey, give me 1 second.
You gotta be 6 feet apart. You gotta sit in the back.
Bogan, you know, we talked about doing speed bumps, I don't know, a couple years back. Do you remember how much that costs to do a speed bump? Was it like 10 grand, somewhere around there?
I think it might have been less than that, but it depended on what type we did. If we did the removable ones that could be pulled up in the winter for plowing, or the larger, like the speed tables they call them, that are permanent and a little bit wider. I think the permanent ones were closer to 10,000 for doing a couple locations.
I had actually our code enforcement board member called me and was asking me about it. I guess there's somebody that lives down off of Bettinger flying up and down the street. And I thought it was around 10 grand for a speed bump, and told him there's reasons we don't like them and that sort of deal. I was just trying to figure out what the cost was with that.
Yeah, I think the 10,000 was when we looked at Beatrice doing 2 sets plus the signage that goes with it. If we did the removable ones and if we did those would probably be about half that.
I
Yeah.
have, speaking with that, in, probably the most interesting group I go to is the Kenton County Mayors Group. Not to say that the other mayors in Boone County don't have opinions, but there's only 3 cities and a judge executive. So one of the benefits of being in the Kenton County Mayors Group is there's about 20 different mayors. So you get a lot of insight into how they do things. So Chris Reiserman, the mayor of Independence, had a similar problem. But what they did, Matt was talking about with the removable speed bumps. And I understand the reasoning why we don't have speed humps is because we don't want to replace a plow every year. Could get kind of costly just to slow somebody down, but they have the removable ones. So if they have a problem area, they place a removable one for a while to correct the issue. And then, as they get somewhere else or that issue tends to slow down a little bit, then they take it and they move it to wherever else they have. They also have, speed signs. We could get those from the county. The county would donate those to us, where it flashes what your speed is. I'm not saying that we do that. I'm just saying that that's something that I've heard other cities are doing, or that I know of that other cities are doing. And so just something for you all to think about.
I know in other cities that I work with, the radar signs have been pretty successful, it seems like, in just, bringing people's attention to it. That might be a starting place, and similar to the removable speed bumps, that you can put them in multiple locations from time to time based on where the problem is creeping up.
Well, maybe Gabe, can you try to see if you can get some of them speed limit or the speed signs from the county and try to place one down Bettinger and Franklin?
Roger, you think that's something you could accomplish? You're a little bit more cozy with Boone County Public Works than I am.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Once they get full staff back, right now it's pretty hard to get anything from them right now, of course. But yeah, I can call Daniel tomorrow.
Maybe
See
we
if
try
it's his
that.
rotating call.
I don't think I guess you call them a temporary speed bump. I don't think that'd be a bad idea to invest in maybe one of them.
We had one on Mullen a couple weeks ago. Seemed to help on Mullen Drive. I don't know who put that out there. I mean, the county obviously, but there was one out there for about a week on Mullen.
Matt, do you have any idea off top of head of what one of those would cost for the city of Walden if we were to purchase one ourselves? It's okay if you don't know. I mean, you could get back.
I want to say 2,500, but I can find out for you tomorrow.
Okay, 2,500. I mean, that's doable. It's. I think for the 2,500, it's more of a question. Is that going to be something that we're going to have a need for on a frequent basis? It kind of seems like it might be. You've always got the flavor of the week of where the hot spot is, but I think that would be a decision for council on what their opinion would be. But yeah, find out a little bit more on that and let me know. Let's see. Moving on. Okay, parks discussion. and I assume we're talking main park here. Roger is going to try to get, if we get a couple days together while we still have everything shut down, we're going to buy some concrete sealer and seal up pressure wash one day and seal the basketball courts for the pocket parks. We've discussed this a little bit. Do you have any plans, Parks Committee, do you have any plans going forward on things coming up for the next budget year besides the splash park? I know before Councilmember Wainwright had resigned, him and I had talked about removing the volleyball court and putting in a kind of an outdoor gym that I ran across. If I could find where the brochure is, something that was pretty cool that I ran across at the Parks Convention. But other than that, I know we've got basketball court, tennis court. Is there any other additions or things that you're all looking at besides the splash park?
We got the Wildcat Run basketball court. Me and Roger met with Greg from High Tech. He's supposed to give us a price. Honestly, I don't know if we have a lot of money to spend in parks with the maintenance we need to do with the tennis court and the basketball court at the main park and the splash pad. That's just my personal opinion.
Well, no. Assuming that we can get this, now that the asphalt plant should be back up and rolling, we've got the money to do those necessary things that we budgeted for this year. So I don't see really a situation to where, we can't, and it's up to you all as far as that goes. But I fully plan on having the court resealed, and same with the tennis courts, out of this year's budget. It's just kind of been, it got to be where we had Wriggler was doing road projects last year. And I had pressed them about this, and they said, "Hey, we're super busy. Can it wait till next year?" So I'm assuming that during this fiscal year, it's still considered next year to them. So I have plans to try to have this done before our actual budget comes available. So I don't anticipate that this is going to be taken out of next year's budget. And there's still money left for the parks budget for this year for those two projects. Anything into next year is next year.
I've been talking to Wriggler, and I know they said that the state has put some of their bid lettings on hold because of COVID-19 and budget concerns and all that. So this might be the time to try and get them out there, that they maybe aren't quite as busy as they would be this time of year.
Matt, would you want to give them a call and see if we can't get that ball rolling?
Yeah, sure.
I would appreciate that.
Roger, did Greg ever get back with you on a price for over there?
He's dropped it off this afternoon. Yeah, it's on my desk. I'll shoot you. I'll get it for y'all tomorrow. I haven't opened it yet.
Wastewater update. I'm sorry. Anything else with parks discussion? Okay. Seeing none. Moving on. Wastewater updates. We are going out to bid. Sharon, Thursday to be in the paper.
Yes.
Okay. So Thursday we'll go out to bid for the sewer upgrade to shut down sewer plant number 2. I know it's kind of been it's taken almost an entire year, but we've gotten all of the easements finally. There were some hiccups along the way, but that's going out to bid Thursday. So hopefully we'll have, Sharon, how long is that running?
Just once. They asked to have it ran just once.
No, I mean, how long is it open for? 2 weeks?
Oh, the 28th, I believe, or the 25th. No, 25th is Monday, so it'd be the 28th is the bid opening.
Okay. So hopefully we should, by next meeting, we should have hopefully acceptable bids. We'll be able to vote on which bid we take, and hopefully we can get that project started and finished. And, you know, hopefully it'll be done where we don't have to worry too much about sludge hauling. And, you know, on top of that, it'll open up a lot of extra opportunities for us in regards to sewer. Hey, Sharon, can you unmute Amy Burling down there?
Yep, there you go.
All right. Steve, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Everybody, this is Steve Burling. Some of y'all know him, some of y'all might not. He's with Burling Engineers. He's been working on our Brinkman Lift Station project with the Owens property, and going through Main Street and looking at different options for us compared to what Monarch went through. You all should have in your Dropbox kind of cost estimates and what the plan would look like going through that property. Is that the case?
Yes, I put them in there this afternoon.
Okay. Steve, would you like, and I'll see if I can pull it up if you want me to share a screen with everybody, but, or if anybody else has it and would like to share a screen. I think I need to have permission to do so. Steve, would you like to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. What the city asked me to do maybe 6 months ago to 8 months ago was to look at a alternate route from having to upgrade the Brinkman pump station and redo the force main down the Dixie Highway. So what we would need to do is extend the force main over to where North Walton Point is now developing another phase, and get the force main through six already existing residential homes and get it over to a gravity sewer. So, and then the gravity sewer would go all the way through the rest of the development, then go through Ender's property, and then through Odell Owens. And Odell Owens already has sewer, but it's in the wrong valley on the other side of the valley. So it's already across Percival Road. We just have to tie into it and then come up through there. We figured it was like 3,300 feet of sewer, gravity, and the additional 780 feet of force main. So on my prices, there's roughly around $300,000 to do that kind of work. And that includes the engineering and the submittals and all that. So the key to this is to go talk to the 7, 8 property owners and make sure that we can get the easements and work out an agreement with each individual property owner. One might give you the easement, the other one might be hard to get. and, that we can do or Matt can do, it doesn't really matter to us. I'm just trying to give the city another option versus tearing up Main Street.
Well, and we've had Roger and Matt talk about the differences between force mains versus gravity lines, and they could both expound their comments on it if they want to. But would you expand upon that as well?
Sure. Gravity sewer is a lot less maintenance. I mean, we are having to extend the force main, but we already have a force main on that side of the railroad tracks that comes up and then it feeds gravity under the railroad tracks. We'll keep the force main all on the east side of the railroad tracks, and we just have to get over to the gravity flow, the new gravity flow. So before we could switch it's a lot easier to dig in open ground, and it's a lot easier to do development in the backyards than it is to do development or do all that work right down the middle of Main Street. There's no utilities out there, and it's not that, it's an easier construction by far than trying to upgrade the pump station, upgrade the force main down Main Street. And I think it's a big savings to the city. The other benefit is it won't happen right away. It might be 5 years, might be 25 years, but it opens up more development area that the city can annex and do a future plan for. Where if you go down Main Street, all that's already been developed and there's no future there. It's just adding more capacity to the pump stations that already exist.
Now, did you look at other options besides that plan, like down Locust or anything else? I thought we had another option starting out.
I never looked at any other option except going down this valley. Because that's where you have two pump stations that pump up to Brinkman, and we're trying to relieve the one, well, both of them the one out of Alsta Valley and the one out of North Walden Point will both go to the main pump station at that point in time. I did not look at anything down Locust. If you guys want me to, I can look at that, but I did not. The big benefit here is the developer will be putting in more than half of the gravity sewer during his construction period.
Okay. Steve, any comments, Steve or Matt or Roger, any comments on difference in long-term maintenance? Versus gravity versus running through Main Street, what we might be looking at long-term, depending on which one.
You're going to save a lot of money if you can keep as much gravity as you can. I mean, you're not going to have pump maintenance. You're going to have pump station maintenance. You're going to have line maintenance. It's like your force main breaks. Once we go down Main Street, you're inevitable. You're going to have leaks in the future, force main leaks. Be back tearing Main Street up. I mean,
Yeah.
if I could have whole system gravity, that would be awesome, but that's impossible. But I mean, I think the way we looked at it to go where Steve's talking about, it's the best option. I know what Matt was talking about on Locust. That's still going across the Enders farm. We're just going across Enders' other side from where Steve's talking about. The Locust, really, I think the best option to go towards Odell's property instead of up on the Locust end of Enders' property.
I think the Locust end on Enders' property is maybe too high to get it.
Yeah.
Because we're down in the very bottom valley where the development is coming out. So I think they'll be going uphill to get to the Locust part.
And you're going to tie into the newer sewer system. It's not as old either as what's in Enders. Enders' sewer system been in since the 70s. So
yeah.
So if you went through the Locust, you would have to add a pump station.
Yeah, we have to get it up to it, I believe, Matt. That's why we went around the other way, because we're trying to gravity the whole new development, and I don't think we can get it up over the ridge on Enders' property.
Steve, do you anticipate any problems going through Andrus's property as far as that easement would go?
I don't think, I think the two farms, Anderson, Odell Owens farms shouldn't be a real problem. We can work with the property owners and we can maneuver where if they want us to maneuver this way or that way, 10 or 20 feet. But the ones that are going to be, I think the tougher ones are the 6 houses that are already established getting through their backyards. It's force main, the difference in force main gravity as far as installation, force main doesn't have to be any more than 3 to 4 feet deep. Well, the gravity main can be 7, 8, 9 feet deep at times. So going through their backyards wouldn't be a big deal as far as construction goes. The only hard part about that whole situation is making sure you can get the easement and get it dressed up and make sure the grass grows, and then it'll disappear. Just like all the force main and all the other neighbors have force main all down to one side, and they don't even know it's back there really because it's been maintained. And Roger would know about any leaks in the past, but there's at least 30 of them or more that already have a force main in their area. So as far as construction goes, this is the easiest and least expensive way to do it. It's just a matter of getting the easements. I can draft them and Mike can notarize them, get them signed and record them. So it's nothing new. We do that stuff all the time for sanitation district. It's just a matter of somebody's got to go out and talk to the owners.
So, Gabe, do you think Odell would give us the easements without the purchase of the property?
It's a very good possibility. I haven't discussed it with him, but it would certainly benefit him to do so, because I know he's had discussions of besides the city of Walton, he's hoping the city of Walton will make this a park, but he is also of the mindset that somebody will buy this property and will probably want to develop it into, I don't see it would never go to, in my opinion, it would never go to anything beyond a residential. But I do see, I know he's been contacted by Fisher Homes. I know that Dorman Home Builders has contacted him. They've also contacted me. And honestly, Dr. Owens is probably one of the most well-respected people in the greater Cincinnati area. I have no reason to believe that he's blowing smoke up my ass that he's been contacted by somebody. So I don't honestly feel like, he's just trying to push this upon the city to do this. But, I do think that he's wanting to move on it at some point. At what point does it become move on it, or he sells it to somebody else? But to answer your question, yes. I think he would give us the easement or sell us the easement. Absolutely. Either way, regardless of whether or not we acquire that property, hang on, I'm writing down some numbers here. Regardless of whether we acquire that property or not, I think that's still the best option. Everything I've seen, I'm sorry for the delay there. Math is not my strong point. I had to carry the one and remove the two. So by my calculations of our initial proposal going through Main Street versus Steve's proposal with Berlin Engineering, 568 was the total project cost for going through Main Street. And I may have been prompting Steve and Matt and Roger all along on what future cost would be. Our second best option is to rip up Main Street and put a force main through. Now, besides the headache that that's going to cause as far as traffic, which you already know is ridiculous going through Main Street. It's going to be Main Street shut down to one lane for about a month. And then as Roger and Steve and Matt have talked, the difference between gravity and force mains, going forward, the overall cost of what this would be to the city of Walton. You can ask Barb. She's a good one because that's another subject we're going to get to here later. And you can ask Roger. Brookwood has a force main going up from about Barb's house all the way up to Dollar General till it hits a gravity line. Roger, how many couplings do you think we have in that whole force main there?
Since I've been here, probably 30 plus.
So I was joking with Roger that we need to start putting wherever there's a force main at, we need to start writing it on the whiteboard at Public Works. And every time we would just write down the force main, and anytime there's a break in a coupling, we put a tick mark. And once we get over about 10 to 15, we need to start looking into replacing the force main. So if you're doing that through Main Street, knowing that there's 30 plus on Brookwood going through there, I think what you're talking about is digging up Main Street over the course of the next 20 years, a hell of a lot. So I think long-term cost, this is definitely the most effective way. I'm not an engineer, not going to pretend to be one. I didn't study very hard in school. It's obvious, but it's not very hard to see. But by the initial estimate from Monarch of going through Main Street is $568,000. Going through the Odell Owens property, in the end, I always forget his name. Andrew's property, it's $300,000. So that's $268,000 right there. Not to mention long-term maintenance added on top of that.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so I mean, it would be stupid not to do the cheaper option for a million reasons unless somebody just doesn't give us an easement or wants $1 million for an easement. So.
Counselor, would you care to weigh in on that? Because there's always eminent domain, is there not?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a public project, so we could condemn the easement. We'd obviously prefer not to do that because that requires court action and a jury and all that. You never know what a jury might do. But it wouldn't be $200,000.
Yeah.
And it would be my understanding of eminent domain is it goes off of fair market value, which is what we would probably offer anyway. Steve's, my conversation with you, wasn't that a 50% of?
SD1 usually does 30% 30% to 50% of the land value. So you don't put the house value in it, but you put the land value of what you think the land value is. And then you figure out how much that land value is per square foot, and you pay anywhere from, they'll pay anywhere from 30% to 50% of the land value. Because if you were paying 100% of land value, you might as well buy it, you know?
Right. So, and in our discussions, refresh my memory, we had talked about with those 5 properties, 4 or 5, I forget.
I think you're going to be, so I think you can get it. It depends on how each individual works, but I think you're somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000 total, you know, I really do.
Those easements.
Some people might give it to you. Some people you might get it for $500, you know? So I think you got to negotiate it. I mean, land value wise, I think Odell and Enders together is around $5,000, $6,000, but that, I think you'd split that with those guys if you went to their land value. You know, if Odell's was worth 500,000, he's got 50 acres, that's 10,000 an acre. So 50% of that would be $5,000, and I think we only have 3/4 of an acre on him. So, you know, you'd be spending somewhere around $3,500 or something like that, if that much. If anything, he might give it to you. So same with Mike Enders. Mike Enders is a plumber. He's in the construction business. He knows how important the sewer is at the low level of his property. So, you know, they might give you these, but just because you're bringing a vital utility to them.
Yeah. And we've kind of discussed this, but as far as, you know, you touched base a little bit on it. And I mean, I guess I could touch base on it with Mr. Enders and Brad Mills owning the properties and council. You all have GIS on your iPads. Feel free to kind of look up the properties next to Odell. It would all be outside of the, you know, ever pressing question of the Walton Verona School District, but it would almost all be Kenton County. There is, and I think Steve said it best, whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years from now, running through this property could be a substantial annexation for the city of Walton into Kenton County. There's opportunities for both of these farms to be annexed into the city and potentially developed into houses. I don't know that I've spoken with Brad Mills before. I think he just enjoys his farm, and I think Mr. Enders does too. Or Enders, I'm sorry. Always say his name wrong. But there's potential there for economic development going forward. And, you know, as the question was asked, would Odell Owens, you know, give us the easement if we didn't purchase the property? Sure, he would, because there's development potential there. Just a thought. Does anybody have any questions for Matt, Steve, Roger in regards to the sewer project? Going once?
I don't have anything. I appreciate it.
All righty. Well, I'll
Steve.
jump off here then.
Thank you much, Steve. I
All right.
appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. See y'all.
Thanks, Steve. Tell your dad hi.
I will. Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Okay. Budget discussions. Do we have, I plan on, I don't know how I'm going to do it. It might be a thing, Sharon, myself, and Dave Baker sit down and start hammering out budgets. I would like to have it presented to you all in June. this year as opposed to cramming it. But I'm going to need your all's input on things that you want to see. I pretty much know what I'm going to put into it. But any projects that you all want, wish list, things open for discussion, you know, you can either say them now or, you can email me and I'll make sure that they're put in there. And then we can negotiate again. I don't want it to go, to where it's July 1. I'm hoping to jump on top of this and get it passed a little earlier. Or at least have it passed before July 1 and not July 4th. We've gotten it passed on time the past couple of years, but it's come down to the wire. So does anybody have anything? Okay. I will say one thing, Barb, there's something we have talked about, and Roger, I don't know how you feel on this, but I talked with Matt yesterday, Bogan. I realize there's some spot repairs that need to be made on Brookwood, but going back to that lift station, to the force main going up through there, Roger and I have kind of pinpointed that lift station and Locust Street. Roger are trying to figure out a plan for that, for maybe earmarked it for next year as an overall project. So, I know we had talked about replacing some concrete pads, different sections, which I'm fine with, but I don't want to get into, I think we got to identify, the absolute, smallest areas. Matt, you want to expound on that a little bit? Kind of.
Yeah. What I had identified from looking at it in the field, there were some panels up by the dollar store that were pretty badly cracked and could use replacement. And I think there was another one past Elmwood, and then one on a joint on the side street that was in a little bit bad shape. So the total of all that, from my estimate to replace those, came in at 24,000, something like that, which would put it under the threshold where we would need to bid it out. That being said, if we were going to replace those and then come back in the not so distant future with a sewer project to repair, upgrade, whatever, the force main, we would probably just be getting into those panels all over again. So it would make more sense from a cost and a project phasing standpoint to do it all at once. I didn't really see anything with the damaged panels that required urgent repair, that if we do it now, we're going to have, if we don't do it, in the next couple months, we're going to have a base failure and, we're going to lose that part of the road.
Can I ask you where you're talking about? Which panels are you talking about? Because the force main doesn't go past Ashwood now. It goes across Elmwood, dumps into, we took that section out years ago, going past the dollar store and down 25.
Well, in that case, the first couple are in the section between Dixie Highway and Elmwood, so I guess those would not be impacted.
Yeah, it takes a turn right there at the intersection of Brookwood and Elmwood and Ashwood, and goes across, dumps in at the top of the hill there, Maddox and Gravity's the rest of the way.
Okay. Well, in that case, We could
It's a whole
consider
new
doing that
ballgame.
as a separate project then, the panel replacement, at least those first couple.
Okay, so that's still a possibility then?
Yeah, in that case.
When I talked to you yesterday, I hadn't really gone through the scope, and obviously we didn't have Roger on the phone either. I knew there were some panels that needed to be replaced, and we still have the Roger, what's the side street there, Roger, Matt?
Elmwood?
Elmwood, yes. That desperately needs replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Would that affect anything there with Elmwood?
That has a new force main running up through Elmwood already. Yes.
Okay, so we should be good on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was put in by Michaels years ago. Not a long time ago. If you'll look, you can see there's cutouts in the street. We cut out the width of the force main, like 3 feet wide all the way up through there.
Oh, is that separate, the separate panels going up the middle? Okay, I wondered why it was laid
Yeah,
out
that's
like
what
that.
that is. Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. That makes sense then. Okay. So I want to get into the Owens property a little bit. Basically, you're going to have a few resolutions come forward. Cassandra and I have been working pretty steadily on the grant application. Cassandra, what would you say we are about? We've got until May 28th. You want to give a little update?
I just received yesterday a letter of interest from the YMCA with their interest in us getting that property for the seniors. And then I also got a letter from Chris Skelton with the Boy Scouts. They're really interested in us being able to get this property as well. I would probably venture to say that, we're at least 75, 80% through the whole application and getting it finished. Sorry. It's really about the only thing I have as far as updates for it. The biggest thing is the budget part of it, trying to nail down the pay for engineers, going in and making trails, the equipment being used, the employees' pay. So that's something that myself and Gabe and Roger was going to sit down and talk about and try to crunch some numbers together, because they want that in detail.
And we've got Patrick Hoagland with Brandstetter Carroll is also working on some overall numbers for that as well. So when we go through it, you're going to see part of you've got two basic. Mike doesn't have the resolutions drawn up, but one of the requirements for the grant is for you all to authorize me to submit the grant first off. The second, I'm not 100% sure is absolutely required, because I have Dr. Owens is submitting a letter of intent of his intent to sell a portion, donate a portion. And there's two ways you all can do it. One I would prefer, the other one I will take. You could either, have a resolution, authorizing basically me to enter into contract negotiations to acquire the property, basically showing a sign of good faith, Or if you would like, you could have it reworded to where it says, basically, we'll purchase the property assuming that we get the grant funding. So that's why you see those resolutions on your agenda. But they absolutely have to be pushed to a vote because we have to submit this grant. I'm not sure that the second resolution is an absolute agreeing to purchase the property or agreeing to allow me to enter contract negotiations, just full disclosure, full honesty. I don't know that it's absolutely required. I think it's a big bonus as far as, as far as the board goes. But the resolution allowing me to submit the grant application is absolutely required. If I don't have that resolution, we can't submit the grant. So it's kind of, here and there. But when we went through, Cassandra and I sat down, we had a Zoom meeting with Stephanie Stephanie King from the Northern Kentucky Ag District. We spent about 2 hours on a Zoom conference. We went through line by line, by arduous line of this entire grant, and took notes on every little detail that we needed to, discussed every little detail that they were asking. But when it gets down to the basic points at the very end, big part of this, there's sections that goes through, it says, where you can pretty much see what points you're going to get for it. You get 0, 5, 10 points. When we go through it, most of it checks off that we're getting 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points, 10 points. A big thing was, who is this going to benefit? A big part of it was seniors. Check. Another part of it was economically challenged families and children. Check. We've got them. We've got a pretty decent population of them, actually, compared to the other cities in Boone County. Then you go through people who backpackers or potentially overnight campers, Boy Scouts, check. So we meet a lot of the requirements for this. Our overall length of trails, connectivity to the downtown aspect, a lot of this, when you look through it, a lot of this grant checks off on everything that we're going to get max points. Plus, I've gotten a commitment from Congressman Massey to write us a letter as well. Congressional district fits in a big part of this. His support, along with John Schickel and Sal Santoro and Gary Moore, I've got commitments from them for letters as well. So I honestly think, I don't ever want to say there's 100% chance of something because that's just foolish. But I would say there's a 98.9% chance that we're going to get the full $250,000 for this trail. And when we discussed it, the initial plan, if you'll see, I think I sent it to you all, or I showed it to you last time. Going off of the main trail is going to be mulch to start with. Now, it was told to me we can't get More than likely, we will not get, if we were to submit the grant again next year, we will not get it. But it's not to say that we couldn't submit for the same grant 2 years from now to take that mulch trail and make it paved ADA all the way around and remove the mulch, or put it adjacent to it for people that want to ride bikes, run, whatever they do. So this is a real possibility that we will get this grant funding. I'm under no illusion that this project would be done in 1 year. Could we take a bond issue out on it? Yeah, we could, but nobody likes bond issues. I don't like bond issues. But we don't have a point to start if we don't acquire the property. I think it makes sense. All 7 of us combined kind of will dictate how this property is done. Realistically, from my point of view, besides acquiring the property and putting in the basic trail and parking lot, the biggest question it would be, as far as money goes, what do we do with the house? And I know some of you have not been able to go up to the property. I had all intentions of taking those of you that had not been to the property up there. I can't tell if we're all still. If anybody wants the code to the gate that does not have it, you can drive all the way up to the house. It looks like there's grass, but there's a base layer of gravel there. You can drive all the way up to the house. Just message me and I will send you the gate code. I'm not gonna air the gate code on an open meeting. But if you want to find out the gate code and you want to go look at it yourself, I'll gladly send it to you. Otherwise, I'd planned on taking a couple of you up there on a side-by-side. I know I've taken Matt, Bobby, before John left us. I took John up there as well. But I will give you the gate code and you can go check it out for yourself. But, the initial, and I'm not going to get into numbers unless you all want to enter into a closed session meeting. The numbers are pretty simple. We're going to get a good bit of this property donated to us for about half of, at cost to the city, for about half of what it appraises for, and about 1/4 of what it's taxable for. So, to me, I think looking forward and knowing that acquiring this property does not mean that it has to open tomorrow. That doesn't make sense. Whatever is going to make the most fiscal sense for us going forward, if we should acquire this property, and coming together as with a strategy and a plan of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, hell, even phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, whatever's going to make the most sense. I did ask Branstetter Carroll to give me a preliminary design. So the map that you saw is just, I told them basically, hey, I want something on paper so I could submit the grant application. That's not a final design. That's what I'm going to submit with the grant application because frankly, it looks pretty. But it's open to discussion So, you know, if we go forward, we could sit down with Branstetter Carroll and, you know, we could talk about what we like about their design, what we don't like about their design. Shit. Come on, Gabe. Hang on, I'm trying to share a screen here.
And while you're doing that, that grant is a match, correct?
It's, well, yes, it is, Bobby. It's 80-20. I had looked at what I had initially looked at was Sandra, help me out. What was the other one?
The other grant that you looked at?
Yes.
It was the, it was a
Land grant, basically. That was for acquisition. Sharon, do I have permission to share screen? All right. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is what I asked them to come up with. So this going up to the other pond would be what we would apply for. We can use the grant funding to go, you know, to put the mulch down or whatnot, but that all applies to it. But what we would do in probably 2 years would take where that number 11 is going up to the pond on the back side of the corner, is we would try to pave that to ADA, which I'm pretty confident we could still get grant funding for that. All the rest is pretty much, it's pretty much just a basic layout. Nothing's set in stone. There's a lot of it, frankly, that, you know, we could pick and choose at a later date. Like I said, I wanted to have something basic, you know, and I've told people before, I can't draw the shit out on a paper napkin with a crown and you know, submit it for a grant application. So that was the reason behind this. And you know, I'll say it again. Our design and development phase of this applies towards that match. So let's see, Bobby, you asked me that question. Yes, it is a match. The first grant that we looked at was a 50-50 match. So if we had applied for $250,000 to acquire the property, we would have had to have spent $250,000. With this one, it's an 80-20. So at $250,000, we would be required to spend $50,000. When you go through the grant funding, city employee hours count, volunteer hours count at $10 per hour. When you go through the master plan here, counts towards that. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure that having the property surveyed through Cardinal would count towards our match. Don't hold me to that. That's, you know, not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of what I gathered. But I know that this master plan counts towards it. I would think having the property boundary surveyed and, you know, spillways investigated would count towards that.
I think that applies under engineering, but I'm not 100% certain on that either.
Yeah, we'll find out for sure. They'll tell us one way or another. They're pretty thorough on what they do to close out this project. But regardless, honestly, I think when you look at the trail going in, the pavement on both sides going up in the parking lot, I'd say even with volunteer hours and this and that, overall pavement, you're looking at probably $250,000 to $300,000 right there. If not, certainly with the extra addition of the trails going around with the mulch and everything else, and clearing trees, we would have our match. But also, when you look at it, and especially with, like I said earlier, Dr. Owens would probably give us the easement going through there. But with the initial plan of 568 going through Main Street, plus the additional upkeep, minus the 300,000 to run the line through the Owens property, you've got an extra $268,000 sitting right there. That would go a long way towards acquiring this property. And like I said, none of this has to be, I don't anticipate, if we were to acquire this property tomorrow, I do not anticipate that it's going to be open next week. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking that by the time any and all of you all get done with your time on city council, that you look back knowing that you acquired this property and you did something really good for the city of Walton, and you have something legitimate that you can say, yes, I did that. My name's on the masthead. We did that. I think it makes sense. By God, it's hell or high water. It's something I'm going to keep pushing for. But I think it's something that if it's all done, by the time it's all said and done, it's something we're all going to be able to hold our heads up high and say that we did. And not only that, but at the same time, we saved the city a shit ton of money on a sewer project that could potentially net the city millions of dollars in development down the road. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Another question on the grant. If we owned the property and submitted for the grant and got the grant, does that lock us into never being able to do it? Like, I know Campbell County's run into that problem when they got grants for trails and stuff. They basically cannot do anything with that property in perpetuity once you accept that grant.
Well, here's the thing with that. Yes and no. And hey, could somebody, Roger, take your pen and somewhere down there around 11. I've talked with Chief Vest a little bit too. Somewhere down there around number 6 in that trail there. I would think that if we acquired the property, yes, it will never be anything other than a park. You can, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but we could sell the property, but it would still have to be a park.
That's right.
I'm correct on that?
Yeah.
I've kind of talked, because there's also this possibility. It's not my main option, but there is a possibility down here around on the right side, down lower where that number 6 is, going into the right entranceway, somewhere around that area. Okay, so from there down to Percival, there is a possibility that when we accept this, we could deed it a little different and maybe break off an acre or two. Just, I just in my discussions with the fire chief, they kind of want a site to where they could do some training, like a burn tower. I'm not saying we do that, you know, but it's a possibility. Be something beneficial to them as well. That's just spitballing. It's not necessarily, you know, something I would think everybody will want to do, or maybe we do, but it's an idea. But it could be done that way. It all depends on how we deed it out. But Bobby, you are correct. If we acquire this property and we receive the grant, then yes, it's going to be a park. Even if we sell it, it's going to be a park. Or, you know, but I honestly wouldn't see, you know, I wouldn't understand a scenario if we went through the trouble to acquire this property. I wouldn't see a scenario to where we just had to sell this property, and, you know, realistically.
Yeah, I understand. It's just one of those things. Like I said, Campbell County did that and then found out later. You know, it's just better to have all the information if you can have, you know, and not find out, you know, if for some reason 20 years from now you're like, well, we need to sell this, and then you find out you can't. It's better to know it now and make the decision then.
Well, like I said, I don't know why we would need to sell it.
No.
I would hope that, and trust me, I have no aspirations to be mayor from 20 years from now. I have no hopes of being on city council 20 years from now, but I would hope and pray that we don't have a mayor and a city council 20 years from now that says, hey, we need to sell this property, because that would absolutely probably mean that somebody somewhere along the way has put the city in a dire situation. You know, I honestly, I don't plan on doing it. I know you all are watchful enough of me to where you don't intend on allowing me to do it. So I have no intention of bankrupting the city. I know you all don't have any intention of bankrupting the city. I do not think this project's going to bankrupt the city. So I just, you know, like I said, I hope and pray that would never be the case. And if so, they could always sell the Gaines Tavern. I would hate to see that as well. But, you know, there's certainly several assets that the city of Walton could get rid of if they had to. You know, this property next door to City Hall, you could sell that and build a house. And he's, you know, I'm still scratching my head as to why we have that property.
We need to put a Christmas tree there. My idea.
Hey, going
Yes.
back to budget discussions. Thank you, Bobby. That will be in the budget. I even found somebody, I had asked about ordering like having a large blue spruce, but so I got educated a little bit by an arborist. We do not want a blue spruce. We want a white spruce. And if we are going to have it brought in and planted, we do not want one that is over 15 foot tall to start. We want one somewhere between 8 to 10 foot, because white spruce at 8 to 10 foot planted in the ground is going to grow at a much more rapid rate than one that is already 12 to 15 foot tall that kind of gets a shock about it. So it was told to me that in 4 to 5 years time, one that we would have put in that's 8 foot tall now would be 15 to 20 foot in much shorter time than if we grabbed one that was 12 to 15 foot now. So I remembered our conversation. I just forgot to follow up on relaying that information back to you, but now I've done so. But yes, we could definitely get that done, and we could get that done here shortly, realistically. So I'll put that in along with budget.
All right. Now on the Owen stuff, do you have any, obviously I mean, you're going to start phase one with blah, blah. But if there's the ultimate build out, do you have estimates on insurance cost, employee costs, cost to maintain, blah, blah, blah?
Bobby, I think that's all arbitrary. It's a good question. It's a very valid question. So it would really depend on what we do with the property. Do we build out the house and use it as somebody there to rent it out, or to sell kayak rentals and things like that? Or do we keep it bare bones and just allow people to come in and fish? I think a majority of what you're going to be doing along that is going to be, simple maintenance as far as mowing, if we keep it bare bones. So if we decide going forward that we want to get into, like I said, with, having somebody there full time or having part-time people there, you're talking about additional expense. Like I said, the sky, we've discussed before, sky's the limit on what we want to do. We just kind of have to pick and choose what we want to do. As far as general maintenance goes, I think we're relatively low key. Insurance costs, my discussions with Bill Wethington and Jeff Martin, very minimal. It is an addition, certainly to our insurance, but the only thing that an underwriter would balk at would be if we put a beachhead in with no lifeguard. So, which I'm not, initially when, first started looking at this, I thought it would be amazing to have a beachhead. Oh my God, it'd be the greatest thing ever. Which would be pretty damn cool, I gotta admit. But I've since come to my senses, once I started talking about numbers with that. So realistically, our overall insurance cost, I don't have a definitive number for you of what that would cost in addition for the year. But at best that I could get you right now, I could get you a number. But at best right now, the best number I could get you would be property as is, which is not going to be the same as if we build it up, various phases. Obviously, the more crap you add, especially if you involve, you build out the building or you do this and that, you add an employee to manage or operate, you're going to look at incurring more cost. So, I mean, realistically, I don't think our insurance is just going to jump through the roof by acquiring this property. And most things like, for instance, you all know I've talked about a skate park at Walton Park for years. But when I inquired with the insurance company there about a skate park, what it was going to add to our insurance cost, the answer was nothing. It's just going to be an extra addition to the park. We're covered under, skate at your own risk. type deal. So it's just another, if anything, the only increase would be to the insurance would be based on, additional liability as far as the money that we spent. So, we increased the value of the park by, 1 million to 1.2 million by putting in a skate park. Those are all just, random numbers, but that would be the only increase. And that's a very significant on the scale of insurance premiums. So the same would be for here. It's just an addition to the city. It's an additional property that we take on, an additional value. But yes, as a park, I can get you a number, but like I said, it's going to be ever changing depending on what we do, Bobby.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a big difference between if it's just a park with a trail system versus pavilions and canoe launch and a house and blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And that's what I'm, look, I love that house. I really do. But when I look at it, when I go explore it, that's your big ticket item right there. It is as beautiful as that house was and could be if it was repaired. It'd be cheaper probably to knock it down, and you could almost build a new one or build a pole barn like they have out at Verona Commons, or not build anything at all. I would certainly, in my mind, when I think about this property, I would like to see people be able to have weddings and things like that out there where they could rent that house or rent a building out to do those kind of things. But I also realize that we've got to be fiscally responsible when it comes to this. And there is a ticket item with this. That's why I say, there's no rush on how soon this thing has to open. But I think there is, I don't think I'm rushing anything. I've been working on this project for almost 3 years. And this is about as far as I've gotten. So in my mind, I don't feel like I've been expedient with anything. But I think now is we're gearing towards a point where it's shit or get off the pot time. So somebody had a question. I'm sorry. I've still got my screen share up. Somebody, hang on. How you work this thing? Did I mute you, Rose? I didn't mean to. What's going on here? All right. Stop share. All right, there, you're all back. Is everybody and their brother's mother muted?
I'm not muted.
Everybody on my screen says muted. I didn't mute anybody. No, look, it's totally up to you all. But I do want to put it's going to be on the agenda. I hope that you all will go forward with it. And, I honestly hope that, once we do go forward with it and make a commitment to it, that we'll sit down and we'll have these discussions and we'll figure out an exact plan of how we want to do it. This isn't just, I could spitball ideas all day long of things that I want to do, which is all good and fine. But at the end of the day, there's 7 of us. There's a lot of input to be had on this, and we've got a real opportunity here. I don't want to lay that, I can't stress that any less or any more. We've got a real opportunity to do something that's going to benefit the city of Walton for a long time to come. So, either way, I'm putting the resolutions out there. They'll be on the agenda. I'll send you as much information as I possibly can. Anything, old files I can dig up, anything like that, but it will be on the agenda. And I hope we can move forward with this and then come together and start hammering out an actual plan of how to phase this in and how to do it right. Time's definitely now on it. I don't want to wait another year to submit a grant application. And I like this council. I don't want to wait for another council. So that's my spiel. I'm going to let nobody has anything else. I think we've scratched through everything I had, or actually Sharon had. Sharon, thank you for writing out everything under the sun you could think of. I really appreciate that. Roger, Cassandra, I appreciate you all sitting in, helping along.
Well,
You're welcome.
Well, I guess since it says on there, citizens comments, I don't see any citizens. Council comments, run through those.
We've got two people on there that are citizens.
Who's Stewart? Is that
Margie Stewart. There she is.
Margie?
Hello. I thought this was a caucus meeting, and you usually don't have citizens' comments at caucus meetings.
Margie, it's this is our caucus meeting, but because of the regulations put out by the governor with allowing us to do virtual meetings, we have to have a line item agenda.
Oh, I knew. Yeah, I knew
and
that.
we've got to call a special meeting. So it's kind of rare circumstances.
Let me put you down. Okay, okay. Yes, your discussion on the park, I really liked that idea. And it almost sounds like a no-brainer to me. Just get it if all possible. I liked the picture on that. And you can go in slow steps, so that sounds good. I did have back here. Oh, when you mentioned Brookwood and you mentioned fixing those slabs, well, wouldn't part of that problem would be because of the flooding that happens there? So while you're at it, couldn't you help the flooding?
I don't think the Matt Bogan might be able to attest to that a little bit more, but my understanding is the flooding that happens there is mainly behind those houses.
Well, it comes up on it comes up on the street as well. It comes down the street as well.
I
don't live there. I'll see videos.
Barb, do you have any comments on that?
I will say that because we're at the bottom of the hill and all the water from Ashwood along with Brookwood comes down to that drain down there, it completely covers our fence in the back of the yard from all of that, but it's mainly because of that opening drain back there where all the water goes has been filled in with rocks and it needs to all be cleaned out again. So maybe if they brought a backhoe or something in there and cleaned all that out, it would help a lot.
Is that private property or no? I'm not sure exactly where.
Well, actually, that great big drain pipe comes down. That's our property that's down there, but then it leads past our property onto Brookings Farm.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to lead into that, but
you would have to go to Boone County.
It does need to all be cleaned out because rocks and everything, trees have fallen down in there, and it needs to be cleaned out.
All right, we've got Councilman Brown on speakerphone until my phone dies. His iPad died. Okay, but Roger, that's something we could take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, she's talking about the Brookings Farm, it's private property. Is that where you're talking about it, Barb? Or
Yeah, when you go past the fence line, it's Brookings Park property, but
where they pulled that culvert out?
where that great big, where the
Okay.
culvert, the great big drain comes into, before you go into Brookings, it's on our property, but that's where all that water washes down in there from both of those streets, Ashwood and Brookwood. It all goes down there.
Yeah.
But
I can
on
take a
top,
look at it
but
tomorrow.
on the street, it also runs down the street, and that's why it would interfere with the concrete slabs, looks like to me. Because
Yeah, it does.
it's, right, it comes down and goes in that circle, and that storm sewer, that, those,
Yeah,
those
that storm
things,
drain.
yeah, those things.
The
It
storm
must be,
drain,
that does not, so much of it comes down there that doesn't take care of it, and so it floods.
I think
Right.
Matt's
Where
talking about the
lift
slabs up
station
on the upper hillside, closer to the dollar store, I believe.
Right,
Matt's talking
yeah.
about replacing, not down there, so.
if we have a major rain, it does flood that whole circle down there, and the storm drain does not take it all very fast. But I will agree with that, and it covers up the road. So yeah, that probably has helped in the concrete deteriorating the way it is.
on the sides, on each side.
Lighting.
I had pictures of that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll look into it. There always runs into a problem of anytime you talk about drainage issues on private property.
Yeah, we
As much
already
as
know
we'd
there's.
like to fix everything, trust me, I've got a big drain problem going through our property.
We already know that Brookings has issues with the city
Oh,
already.
it's
So
Sure.
Now, also, when Cassandra mentioned, when we were speaking about the old fashioned day, and Cassandra mentioned that, yeah, people that we do not know, they do not know what old fashioned day is for Walton. And I thought, well, maybe we could come up, you know how each business, they are coming up with mission statements? Well, maybe we should come up with a mission statement, you would call it something else, that would have a little write-up of what old fashioned day is to post it.
kind of like a definition of what old fashioned is.
Yeah, well, definition, or, well, you wouldn't want to say definition, it's a reading on it, for the town, for the town
Well,
of
maybe
Walton.
put up old pictures of what it used to be or something.
Yeah, put a old picture and then write about old fashioned day for a definition, what they did. Basically what they've done for the Gaines Tavern House, or why did they name it the Gaines Tavern, and what they was wanting to do for why that. We'll have that for old fashioned day. I don't know. High Street Bridge. Walking trails.
Sorry, buddy. All right. Barb, Margie, I'm sorry, I had to use the restroom. I was floating.
So my lap.
So if that ends citizen comments, Margie, are you good?
I'm good.
All right, we'll move on to council comments. Barb,
I'm good.
Rose,
I'm good.
Terry,
I'm good, thank you.
Bobby,
I ain't got a thing.
Stephanie Williams,
I'm good.
and Matt Brown via speaker. Matt Brown, do you have anything?
Just pray for Dylan and his family.
Fair enough. Matt says pray for Dylan and his family. I would say the same. Known David pretty much my entire life. Great guy. Besides all that the Willoughbys have done for the city of Walton for probably 30 years. Great guy, great family, tragic loss. So I ask everybody to keep the Dylan and the Willoughby family in their prayers. Other than that,
Actually, can I just ask one question? We began to scratch the surface of the employee handbook. When might we revisit that?
well, that's a good question, Terry. My hope is since we've brought the city employees back to work, my hope is that for the June meeting that we'll all be meeting in person and not virtually. So June, I think, would be a perfect time to visit that. Now, how we go about the June meeting, my suggestion would probably be to have the caucus meeting at the senior center as opposed to the council chambers. That way we can all maintain our social distance, but that's my thoughts on it. So I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but
Yep.
yes, we will be addressing that very shortly.
The only thing I have to say about that is if we do end up having it, then let's call a time frame, because I'm not going to stay there until midnight working on an employee handbook.
Well, no, that's a very fair point. So hopefully we'll have a good understanding of the changes, of proposed changes, and if everybody looks through, finds their sticking points, then maybe we could just hash out sticking points besides, basic things. Realistically, and you all may disagree with me, but realistically, I honestly believe, as far as employee handbook changes go, that really boils down to day-to-day operations. I think, it's the job of the mayor more so to look through the employee handbook along with my department heads and pick and choose of kind of look through what needs to be changed and present it to you all. Ultimately, ultimately, now hang on. Ultimately, it's up to you all to make the changes.
I think that's an excellent idea. I think you and your department heads ought to get together and make the changes and then propose them to us and see if we have any additions to it.
Perfect.
Well, Sharon's already done all hers, so Roger, hurry up.
We could do that. How about we do that, and we'll save us all a 4-hour meeting. How about that? Because I also want to propose a budget.
Because I won't have a whole lot. I don't think it's broken too bad. Just needs a few changes here and there.
Sure, absolutely.
Can I suggest something? I think there needs a drug and alcohol policy on the handbook for testing.
Okay.
I think we already have one.
Actually, there is one already.
No, they need to be randomly drawn and tested and drove into the test site in Erlanger and be
I don't
tested.
think we have anybody that has an issue, but okay.
Yeah, I think that would be a waste of money, but we could do that. I don't think it's going to affect anything.
It's be an accident-driven thing like most companies are. If you have an accident, you go get drug tested.
It just cuts down on the insurance, workman's comp. That's all I'm saying. It helps out in the long run.
Fair enough. I'll look into it.
Mayor, before you call for adjournment, are you going to have your regular planning meeting before the council meeting next week?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we've touched base, unless, certainly worth picking everybody's brain right now. I don't really think we have any pressing issues on planning. We kind of touched base on it a little bit tonight. would you all just rather start the council meeting at the time of the planning meeting, or would you rather have it, you know, at a regular scheduled time and skip the planning meeting?
I don't have anything for the events. I mean, we talked about that tonight, and we can just start the meeting at the regular time. I don't care.
7:30?
Matt Brown says 6:30.
6:30 is fine
I'm
with
good
me.
either way.
Fine with me.
If everybody's cool with it, we'll just have an actual regular council meeting at 6:30.
Sounds good.
And we'll worry about the planning another day, hopefully when we can all get back to arguing with each other and face to face like old times. That's a joke. You're all supposed to laugh. Ha ha.
Ha ha ha.
All right. Well, I guess if I can get a call to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Goodbye. Good night.
Have a good night.
You
Wash
all
your
do the
hands.
same. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Not everyone.